Joining me today are Megan Watterson and Lodro Rinzler, co-authors of How to Love Yourself and Sometimes Other People. Megan is the founder of Reveal, an organization that spiritually empowers women. She also leads a women's spirituality group in New York City called Red Ladies. Megan has her master's in theological studies from Harvard Divinity School and a master's of divinity from Columbia University. Lodro Rinzler is a practitioner and teacher in the Shambhala Buddhist lineage and the author of 5 books on meditation, including his best-selling The Buddha Walks Into a Bar. Lodro is the founder of the Institute for Compassionate Leadership and has taught numerous workshops at meditation centers, businesses, and college campuses throughout the U.S. These 2 brilliant spiritualists have come together to compose a smart, hip guide for spiritual seekers who want to experience more love and stability in all relationships. Their book explores staying anchored in the foundation of self-love as you navigate your connections with those you love. Okay, so today joining me are Megan Watterson and Lodro Rinzler, co-authors of How to Love Yourself and Sometimes Other People. So how did the 2 of you get together, first of all, to write this book? What was that inspiration, or how do you know each other?
Well, Megan and I initially met at, we were on the same panel on a spiritual writers festival. And we had an instant connection. We had no clue what to do with it. We became quick friends. And we were actually sitting in at a book launch together and had this habit. It's a really bad habit. It's really disrespectful to the authors that we were there for. And where we just like write back and forth like we're in 3rd grade.
Okay.
And so we were writing all these notes back and forth. And somewhere within that, we were like, we should write a book together. Like these people wrote a book together. And then our editor happened to be there, and she pitched us on writing a book together simultaneously. Like so one of those kismet moments. Yeah. Right.
Quick connection. Love it. Was that recently?
Yeah, you know, it actually all happened really quickly. We met about a year and a half ago.
Yeah. My God.
And then we wrote this within just a couple months once we got going. It's just a topic like how to love yourself and then relationships in general. I mean, both of us have given it so much thought over our spiritual journeys that it just happened and flowed really nicely.
And when we met, you know, there's some people that you meet where you don't actually feel like you're meeting them for the first time. You kind of feel like you're picking up from long ago, or you somehow have known each other longer than, you know, you could. So we quickly realized that there were a lot of synchronicities in our communities and a lot of synchronicities about what we wanted to express and teach. So they just all sort of aligned.
So I wonder if you were spiritually connected in another life and brought here now to write this book, co-author the book.
If we weren't before, we certainly connected now.
You sure have.
Yeah.
So we've all heard of the age-old advice, we need to love ourselves, right? But what exactly, you know, what does that mean in today's world with all of this, you know, crazy hustle and bustle going on, and, you know, we don't have time for anything. What does it mean now to really love ourselves?
Well, I think, you know, so often we have this focus to finding love somewhere outside of us, and that we have to do something in order to find that love. We have to be someone different, or we have to be at the right place, or we have to, you know, be on the right dating website. And the wisdom that comes from the Christian tradition that I'm immersed in really reflects that what is within us then we meet with outside of us. So the idea is that we can really anchor into our own capacity to love. That effort allows you to attract the love that you need into your life. So you don't actually have to go anywhere or be someone different or, you know, dress a certain way in order to attract the love. You actually really just have to focus on being able to love yourself. And then that capacity to love yourself will be proportional to the love that's able to meet you from outside you.
But that's not an easy task.
You know, the only painful thing about the book is that it takes longer than we want. We have to look at some of the dark corners of our minds and our neurosis and our confusion and say, okay, I can love all of who I am before I can start to really offer that love elsewhere.
Right.
So, you know, as Megan said, in both of our traditions, really. When I read her first book, Reveal, I thought, oh my goodness, she's talking about the same sorts of things I talk about through a Christian lens, but I come from a Buddhist background. It was shocking to me how much we overlapped. And we have this commonality in divine worth, that underneath all of that, the confusion and the neurosis and all these things that we carry around with us, there's peace, there's worthiness, there's kindness. And that's innately who we are. That's what we purport to say in the book, and that's what we really do believe and have experienced ourselves. So the more we actually discover that, the more we're able to offer that love elsewhere.
See, I feel the exact same way. I'm glad that you said that, because I believe that all spiritual practices, the message is the same. It's just how it's delivered. That's what resonates with people, and that's what they respond to, right? Whether it's your practice, or my practice, or your beliefs. Everyone needs to find what's right for them, because at the end of the day, the message is really the same, isn't it? Right? How to love yourself. So what makes this book different than some of the other books that are out there on relationships and love and sometimes loving other people?
I think there's a lot of honesty in this and a lot of raw sort of vulnerability from both of us. And in addition to stories, anecdotes, there's a lot of practices about how to actually go deep and discover that love. But it's this is not the book about how to go out and find the one. This is not the book that says you find someone and is happily ever after. It's how do we actually ride all the vicissitudes of our life, being alone, dating, even long-term relationships, and looking at those things are uncomfortable. How do we stay with the discomfort? How do we look at it? How do we actually find love in all of these situations? Even if it's more of a platonic love, we also have that. So it's looking at this from a very honest point of view. It's a continuous journey of loving ourselves and then offering that out and letting that radiate out to the world.
And it's also from the perspectives of my Christian mysticism background and then his Buddhist background. And then there's also the male-female perspective. Yeah. We go back and forth within each chapter and share our stories and our perspectives and the practice, which, this book isn't just about theory and stories. This is really about putting all of this wisdom and information into practice. And what we both found as we started to share stories back and forth is that there really was this common thread between us, between our experiences, that in our search for love, there's a glaring need to feel worthy of it. So we really wanted to talk about how do we root in that idea that we are intrinsically worthy of love, and how do we practice it? So we both focus on that.
It's written really well. It's very approachable, and anyone can read it, from a teenager to an older adult. I love the way the chapters are broken out. How to love and be single, how to love dating, how to fall in love without losing yourself, how to commit to love. They're all, just very tactful and very practical in what we all experience in our everyday life and what we expect love to be. So what role does spirituality play in forming deep and lasting relationships?
We want to suggest that we can bring the meditation cushion into the bedroom. That it's, somewhat, we expect to meet with the goddess when we're in a temple in Egypt, and we expect to see the Buddha when we're, in the Himalayas meditating, or Jesus when we're in some, gorgeous retreat center. But can we meet with those highest aspects of ourselves? Can we find that love within us to meet with those situations when we're in, this heated debate with this person we love, or when this person we love is telling us that they can't actually be with us, or, live with us, or, sort of meet us where we need them most to meet us? Can we find that highest aspect of our being when we are in those very heated human moments in our life?
And I mean, what you said, it's spirituality. It's not that you have to be a Christian. It's not that you have to be a Buddhist to read this book by any means. This is a book for anyone who says, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. It's love. The Dalai Lama said, kindness is my religion. And I think what we're saying is love is our religion. Right? Like, can we actually use our spiritual practice and not say it's over here, my meditations, my prayer, and my love life is over here, and I'm going to keep them separate, and this is what I do in the morning, and this is what I do at night. It has to be brought together.
Yes.
So bringing that ability to love into all of our different relationships, our friendships, our family, our animals, our lovers, our long-term partners, all of it. Can our love flow so fully that it just incorporates all aspects of our life?
That's very true. So every time we face the choice to share our deeper self, we stand at a crossroads. Often it's just too scary to take that step forward. What advice can you give our readers about learning to embrace their vulnerability?
I love that question. And I think that what I've lived and what I've experienced is that our vulnerability is a power to be able to access who we really are and to express and share who we really are. And you know, the advice or the consolation is, for me, that the broken open heart holds more light than the closed heart too afraid to break. So it's really why we're here. We're meant to break our hearts and learn to allow them to be larger and larger.
Yeah, there's something, we don't want to be vulnerable. It's not a cultural norm. It's actually, in a city like New York, where we both live, it's one of those things where we walk around with our shoulders tight. We don't want to give anyone any space. There's something that we need to actually do to let go of some of that armor in order to love. And we've done this before. Most of us have had those experiences in a committed long-term relationship where we're able to sort of let that armor go a little bit. But the challenge that we present in this book is, can we do that all the time? Can we actually allow our love to flow so fully that everyone gets to experience it? It's not just the people we like, it's also the people we don't know very well, and the people we may not necessarily like. And how does that influence them? Because I've found in my own experience, the more we're actually open and inviting people to enter into that sense of vulnerability and space, the more likely they are to join us there.
Right. I agree. I mean, I see that happen in my life all the time. And, you know, when you're fighting that battle within yourself, it's really about who you're fighting. You're not fighting anybody else but yourself.
Right.
So it's just a losing situation. You talk a little bit about how to be an indie mom. What is an indie mom? It's a great term. Great term. What is an indie mom?
Well, I write about in the beginning of the book what it was like to divorce and have a young child that I was looking after, starting to date, you know, and how I tried to keep an open heart through it all. And whenever I sort of assigned the name or moniker, the title, single mom, I just, you know, would feel despair and end up in a pool of feeling sad and sorry for myself. And this comment that kept coming to me was, I'm never going to stop loving him. You know, I was never going to stop loving my ex-husband. And it sort of made me feel trapped in the wake of this unrequited love, you know. And then I ended up having this epiphany that statement is actually just the truth of who I am. I'm never going to stop loving him. But that doesn't mean that I won't expand to include more love and allow more love to enter my life and my heart. It's that's the essence of who I am. I'm someone who doesn't stop loving, even if the relationship has ended. I wanted to transform that relationship to then be able to meet this love that I still had. And it was the constricting of my heart that was causing so much pain. It was the idea that I had to stop loving him that was causing me so much pain.
Wow.
So just allowing myself to have that shift and say, oh yeah, I'm never going to stop loving him because that's the truth of who I am. Then I claimed, you know, because I was thinking about Sundance film festivals, indie films are so cool, you know.
Great term.
And I was like, an indie mom it just felt like the rock star version of single mom. And when I embraced it, it got me really excited about what's next, what might happen next, who might be next. And it also allowed me to keep that space open in my heart that I never have to stop loving anyone I don't want to in my life, even if they leave my life, you know. I can choose how I want to go through that transition, and I can allow it to add more life to my life.
I think that's another book. Totally. Especially for, you know, divorced women and not, you know, people just breaking up out of relationships. Seriously. You got that right. Okay, she's got it down already. 10%. Now, you talk also about how to wait for love without waiting. how, how is that possible? People are always waiting, waiting for that person to walk into your life or to meet that best friend or to make that connection. How do you wait without waiting?
One of the things we talk about in the book is all these little in-between times of our life. Like when you get in an elevator, you've got 30 seconds and you're just alone with yourself. And in those 30 seconds, we do one of three things really. One is we start spacing out and we get on our phone and we start distracting ourselves. We run away from the experience. Another is that we freak out and get aggressive with ourselves, start judging ourselves. Oh, I shouldn't have said that earlier. Sort of get lost in our own thoughts. The third thing we can do is just relax and be okay with our own experience. Being okay with, oh, I'm alone for a second. It's just me, and I can befriend myself in this moment. So we're looking at a lot of these moments in our life where we may have a partner, we may not have a partner. In either case, we're going to have times that we're alone. And can we just learn to love in those moments instead of fleeing into distraction or trying to busy up our life or trying to judge ourselves for our own human experience? So can we actually just learn to love fully in those moments, those little moments of our life, and let that expand, that continuity, so that ultimately when there is someone that we meet and we find that best friend, we're already ready for them. It's already happened. They just happen to be joining in our love.
They're joining in on the love train that's already started.
Yeah.
I used to hear when I do a soul voice meditation where I go within and I ask questions.
Will you do that with us?
Yes, I will.
Okay.
And this one time I heard very strongly, true love means no longer waiting. And of course I had no freaking clue what it meant. But I had to live into what that meant. And I realized that it was reflecting the fact that I was really waiting for some external circumstances to happen before life was really going to begin, before everything was sort of happening for me, or before I had a sense of loving myself fully. I really was waiting for someone else to come and love me. And that idea is that we can start loving ourselves right now. We don't have to wait for approval. We don't have to wait for permission, for evidence that we are worthy of love. We can, right now, start loving ourselves fiercely. And then, as Lodro said, someone else will inevitably come and join us on that love train. They'll come and join us. They're not going to provide us with something we lack or that we don't already have. They're going to add to that love that we're already cultivating and experiencing from within us.
It's like giving ourselves a hug. I'm going to go start loving myself, which I don't do enough of, so I'm going to really focus on that. We all do it, it's just habit.
We spend decades just beating ourselves up internally.
I know.
And that whole, waiting to give, waiting for permission, to love ourselves, waiting for that someone, that validation from someone else somehow justifies, us loving ourselves.
Right.
It's sad. It's very sad that we live that way.
But it's powerful that we can claim that right now in this moment. Yeah. We can just say, okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm ready.
And we can learn how to do that by reading this book and so much more as you're learning now with this interview. So now also wanted to ask, I have a 13-year-old daughter and she's just, coming to, actually she's 14 now, sorry. She's just coming into that, where everybody starts to hook up. So there's no more relationships, right? Oh, they don't start like they used to when, at least when I was a kid. I don't know what it was like. I'm a little older than you both, but there was always a boyfriend or girlfriend, and that doesn't exist anymore. So in your how to have sex when you're not in a relationship, how can you explain that in a way that there's still a connection, for this younger generation?
The most powerful advice I can give a young woman starting off in this crazy adventure of, sharing her body, sharing the experience, of her vulnerability in that situation, is to get very honest and real with whether or not she actually wants to be physical with someone.
But it's not just for it's not for my 14-year-old daughter. It's for this whole generation of, okay.
In any relationship, actually really at any age, not just teenagers, but really at any age,
yeah.
We can feel such pressure from the other person, from cultural ideas of how sexual we're supposed to be, or of what we're supposed to feel like and what we're supposed to do and the timing of it. Oh, well, it's the third date. Well, now we have, there can be these expectations.
If they make it to a third date.
Right. Or the first date, we're in Tinder culture and Grindr culture,
Right.
and it's a part of, and for some people, that can feel healthy and liberating, authentically. That can really be in alignment with what's healthy and good for them. The question is it actually authentic to what's good for you? That's all that matters. And that's why a meditation practice or some sort of practice where you can get very clear about what your particular truth is, especially in the moment, where you can be very honest in a moment and say yes or no. Is this really what I want to do? You're sharing such a powerful aspect of who you are when you are physical with someone else. And we talk about the shift that makes sex sacred is the presence, is being able to be fully present in the moment. And it's that presence in that moment that allows us to really hear, is this right for me? Or is it too soon? Or is this person just not right at all? And it takes so much courage. It takes so much bravery to just be completely honest and to say, you know what? I made a mistake. This isn't going to happen. Or to just hear that yes and dive in. But the most important barometer is listening to what you actually want. And that's one of the most amazing and fierce acts of loving ourselves. Of in that moment saying, yes, this is right for me, or no, this isn't. No matter where you are in the spectrum of, whether you're at the bar or you're in the bed already.
Right.
It's being fiercely honest with what's actually true for you and then taking action on it.
Yeah, I think fiercely honest is the right term there. And a lot of what we talk about in the book is knowing your intention for any of these acts.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just have to be about sex. It could be about getting into a relationship to begin with.
Right.
Going on lots and lots of dates. Why am I doing any of these things?
Yes.
Knowing your personal why is so important because at times you're going to be disheartened, at times it's going to be painful, at times you might get confused, and you can look back and say, oh, I'm dating because I actually want a partner and I feel ready to do that because I've moved on from so-and-so. I'm dating, I shouldn't be doing this right now because actually I'm still heartbroken and I'm just trying to get over that last person by getting under someone else. Like there's all sorts of ways that we might be deceiving ourselves. So knowing why we do any of the activity we do, whether it's sex, dating, long-term relationships, whatever, is really important.
So there is no judgment and there's no right or wrong. It's just based on being aware and knowing that when you're in the moment, what you're doing.
Right.
Yeah,
and
that
everything's
sounds right.
really acceptable.
What's your intention, and also what in the moment is true for you?
Brilliant. Brilliant. You guys wrote such a great book. Now, how to stay in love. How do you stay in love?
Well, something that I talk about in that chapter is how crucial it is to commit to our own soul. We talk a lot in committed relationships and marriage. We focus a lot in our culture of finding that someone else and then being loyal to them and committing our lives to them. But I think an aspect that can be forgotten that I think is the most crucial is that we continue to be faithful and loyal to our own soul. And that actually takes precedence to this other soul. So in the course of that committed relationship, you are continually honoring what is actually true for you, what's highest for you, what you need to do that might be separate from that person and might at times take you away from that person. But if the relationship is strong and powerful, it's going to expand with your own expansion. So for me, I think one of the most crucial secrets to long-term relationships is not so much about not betraying the other person. It's more about not betraying our own soul.
A lot of times within a long-term relationship in particular, we start to take the other person for granted a little bit, and we get into these weird moments where we say always or never, and it's like this solid thing. And it's negating the fact that we are constantly changing and evolving human beings, and our partners are constantly changing and evolving human beings. So we say, I always do the laundry, you never do the laundry, right? I always do the dishes, you never do the dishes.
Yeah.
And these are such, it's like, these are just, it's like law. It's like written in stone at that point, as opposed to saying, well, actually, I did it last week, and you did it the week before. And it's sort of just noticing that we are not solid one things, and that the other person that we're in love with is also not just a solid one thing. They're actually constantly changing, constantly dancing around and shifting, and we have to sort of dance with them. And it's these relationships that are like this elaborate tango where we're constantly going around and around and trying not to step on each other's feet. And sometimes we do, and sometimes it's uncomfortable. And I mean, this is one of the things I think that sort of separates our book out from other books, where we don't say, well, when you get your relationship, you get the right person, the right relationship, it's going to be wonderful forever. We say, no,
Right.
Relationships are effing uncomfortable. They are. These people drive you up the wall. They show a mirror and you see some of the worst parts of yourself.
Right.
There's a Korean Zen master, Sung San, who says, he used the analogy of potatoes, and they used to throw in his household all of the potatoes in a bathtub together and put it in a stick, and that's how they would clean all of the dirt off of them. Because the potatoes would literally smash against each other and dirt would knock off. And that's the example of a relationship. So we have to acknowledge the fact that these people are constantly changing and shifting and evolving, and sometimes we'll knock together and some of our dirt will come off and some of their dirt will come off, and ideally it means it's actually a sort of mutually purifying experience. Almost like hitting restart on a computer. We just reboot and we say, what's going on here? I woke up next to this person today. Who are they? Who is this person?
Right.
And just starting to become very inquisitive about our experience and our partners, so that we don't just think that they're one thing, but we start to actually notice all of the ways that they're shifting.
So both partners in a relationship need to read the book.
That's right. You're right. You have to buy 2 copies per relationship.
Yes. You know what? Why not?
Why
Make it even. What spiritual exercises or practices can our readers incorporate into their daily lives?
I think one of the most powerful exercises that I suggest in the book is around anchoring into self-love. That's a theme throughout the book, and really being able to access that sense of love from within us, so we don't fall into that illusion that we're dependent on someone else as our source of love. Our main spring of love, our ultimate source of love is within. One of the practices before I did the soul voice meditation and was practicing that, I did a lot of mirror work. And it's very uncomfortable at first. You know, you kind of look at yourself and
No, that's not me.
and you focus on your actual face and you look at all these weird, things that you didn't notice. But once you get past that and you can really look into your eyes, there's this amazing presence that surfaces from behind your eyes. There's this presence I began to notice that would meet with me. And I began to identify that sensation when I was really locking eyes with that kind of eternal, deeply loving presence within me. I began to really understand and identify that as my soul. And your whole relationship to yourself, to what you want for yourself, to being able to be present and to show up for yourself changes when you begin to really see that and witness that there is something within us that is much more than us, and that we actually have a sacred obligation to protect and to covet and to love and to share and to really bring out into this world. So one of the practices is just mirror work, and to begin to, maybe it's when you're brushing your teeth, or, you kind of create a habitual practice around something that you already do every day, and really lock eyes with yourself and really try, to get past the jokes and, making fun of yourself or scrutinizing your face, and actually look at the presence that surfaces from behind your eyes and begin to really connect with that presence. That really shifted my life, that practice.
I think looking at yourself is the primary theme in this whole book. If we can't look at ourselves, we can't learn to love ourselves. Thich Nhat Hanh once said, understanding is another name of love. And if we can't understand, we can't love. So one of the practices that I mentioned in the same vein of looking is the meditation practice that's often taught within Buddhist circles, which is shamatha, calm abiding meditation. And it's just anchoring yourself into the breath, coming back to it over and over again so you become anchored in the present moment, and then noticing when your mind drifts off into all of these various thoughts, judgments, fantasies, emotions, and coming back over and over again. So my favorite word for meditation in the Tibetan system is gom, G-O-M. And gom, in addition to be translated as meditation, can be translated as become familiar with or familiarity. And it's the idea that we're actually becoming more familiar with who we are. So just by coming back to the breath over and over again, 10 minutes a day, we're actually becoming more familiar with all these various aspects of our mind. We're starting to understand ourselves better. And as a result, we're actually learning to love ourselves more.
Beautiful. Well said. You have some meditations in the book, but before we go, I'd love both of you to do one with us. Before we go into that, we always ask during our interviews, if you could tell us a rewire me moment you had in your life. A moment where you were just, oh, wow, like...
Oh, yeah. So I think the most profound rewire me moment in this book, or the process of writing this book, was towards the end of the book. I talk a lot about the beloved, because in the Christian mystic tradition, a lot of poets speak of the beloved and trying to find the beloved. And what I realized in the course of writing this book is that we don't have to find the beloved in order to become beloved. We just have to remember that we already are. That was my moment.
That's true.
Yeah. I during the process of this book, I believe it was right around the beginning of our planning the whole thing, I ended up in this relationship. I had no clue that I was ending up in a relationship. It just sort of happened where we went away together as friends, and then we came back partners, and then we went deeper with it. And I remember a few weeks in, and this ended up making it into the book, just sitting there and looking at her and saying, are you willing to meet discomfort with me? Like, if we're going to go down this road of a relationship, are you going to stand shoulder to shoulder with me and meet discomfort? And it was this rewire me moment of, can I ask this of another human being? To just be straight up honest about what a relationship is and say, can we do that together? And thankfully she said yes. So it was one of those situations where it's been a touchstone going through the whole, as I said earlier, relationships are difficult. All of the difficulties, and saying, oh, we've agreed. We sort of verbally have this contract that we're going to stand shoulder to shoulder no matter how uncomfortable it gets, and just look and become more honest.
I love that image.
Yeah, so do I. But relationships are also good, right?
They're wonderful. We wouldn't have written a whole book about loving and being in relationships if we both didn't love. But yeah, it's both. It's both, right?
Yeah.
They remind us, relationships remind us of the love that we already have within us. It's not that they're supplying us with a love that we don't have. That's the difference.
Right.
And that's where our true sense of self-love can come from, and our true sense of security. So we can have more fun in the relationship, right? Because that source of love is within us.
Right.
So if that person needs to leave, and we know that love isn't going to leave, we take that love with us. And that makes dating and relationships a lot more fun.
Absolutely.
It does. I'm not sure if I asked, but I'm going to ask it now. What do you mean by "and sometimes other people"?
The sometimes other people, it's like we have to have the strong foundation of loving ourselves, and then we experiment. We experiment how much we can offer that love to others. Obviously, at some point, the better we talk about loving practice. The more we're able to just love wholeheartedly, the more people we're able to accommodate in the boundless area of our heart.
The idea is that we can't love another if we can't actually love ourselves. And that our own capacity to love ourselves then is proportional to our ability to love other people. There actually is no difference. So the effort of loving ourselves is that same effort of being able to come into alignment with a relationship that can really meet us.
So then, is it a silly question, but is it okay then to not love someone?
As long as you're loving yourself. Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, you may find that you were in a relationship because they were providing you with something that you realized you could provide yourself, and that you need to actually work more on cultivating your own self-love before you really want to share that with someone else. I mean, that's wonderful. We need more of that.
Yeah. I mean, to
about the ultimate relationship is, we will have different partners throughout our lives. We will have different, friends and relationships with our family, but the relationship we have with ourselves is a lifelong commitment, and is something that we feel is the most important relationship to work on.
because we ain't going anywhere.
Nowhere to go.
Can't get rid of that.
Can't get rid of your shadow.